Welcome to Satsang. Nice to be with you here. Just a couple of words before we address questions. That Satsang is being in peace, being with peace, being as peace, being at rest with our true nature, being at rest as what we are, as what we truly are, not as what we imagine ourselves to be. So it is being in your innate freedom, being as your innate freedom, being empty, being void of knowledge, of past knowledge, being free of time, being free of limitation, being free of identity. So in satsang is a recollection of what we are. It's a remembrance of what we are, of the wholeness, the causeless peace of what is, what I am. I referring to universal beingness, referring to God consciousness, referring to that reality, the one reality that is beyond the mind, that shines onto all minds when the mind is at rest. So welcome to your true self, welcome to Satsang. So hello Randa, you're right. Hello Magdi, please explain how an impression comes about and gets identified with. So Randa, impressions arise via the senses, so through perception and through mentation. In other words, impressions arise as forms. You have the gross forms, such as whatever you perceive that we refer to as the world. And you have impressions that are more internal impressions, such as sensations, the sensory realm. The body falls in that, mostly in that category of being the sensory realm. And of course, then you have the mental realm, what we refer to as the mind, meaning thoughts, imaginations, intuitions. So impressions arise phenomenally. They are phenomenological, meaning they're phenomenal, and they're connected. They affect each other. So you may perceive a certain perception, a certain worldly perceptions that may trigger some thoughts and also may trigger some internal feelings and sensations, bodily sensations. And that realm we refer to as the phenomenal realm. Now there is a realm that is referred to as the noumenal realm, meaning it is non-causal. It is its own cause, its own source. And that is consciousness. So a good metaphor of that is that the sensory realm, the realm of imaginings, the perceptual realms, is like your night dreams, the events that arise in your night dreams. All the perceptions, all the thoughts, all what you experience that have a sort of a beginning and an end. They're changing, they're transforming. And the noumenal realm would be the realm of the dreamer of these dreams. The dreamer is its own source. It is not dreamt. Characters in the dream and events in the dream are dreamt. But the dreamer is not dreamt. It is God consciousness. So awareness is the unchanging reality of your experience. What truly perceives right now, this perception, is the formless self, non-causal, unborn, uncreated self. There is an absolute reality to everything that you experience. That reality is the true self that is overcast whenever you identify yourself with content of your experience. When you identify yourself with an event in time and space, you overlook your wholeness and you fall in the impression of multiplicity and separation. And you experience at that moment an inner angst and the yearning to return to the source. But because you have moved away from the source and you have identified as a mortal form, which is a mind event, although you do experience a yearning for the wholeness, you feel lost and confused because you rely at that moment with imaginary resources that you believe you have, which is mentation. You're relying on the resources that are referred to as the human resources. So the human resources cannot help you to come to your true nature, to awaken to your true nature. You need grace. And this is where prayer comes in. The deepest form of prayer is, of course, love for truth. So it goes like, I love you, God. I am yours. Show me the way. And because you are God's grace, God hears your prayer directly. Because the true prayer is immediately heard and is immediately answered. But a prayer that has personal intention, that is asking for personal gains, it's still embedded in ignorance, it's still embedded in the impression that I am immortal, body, mind, and that I need things, I need some help as a person to benefit myself as a person. And that is not, there is no surrender in such a prayer. There is an asking, give me, give me. There is not a giving. When you give all of yourself to God, God immediately hears you. But I don't know if I've moved really far away from your question. The identification, the tendency to identify is built into the organism, because the organism is sensory and is sensitive. And develops some addictions when we experience a certain excitement. It triggers in the body as if like the beginning of a desire for it. It's like getting habituated to sugar or coffee or substances. There is within the body a tendency to habituate. And when we're experiencing sensations and we get habituated to these sensations, there is a form of addiction to the sensations. And when I say sensations, I'm including images and thoughts, because images of ourselves also trigger certain feelings that we also get addicted to. Some people like to be admired, to be praised, or to have a certain image about themselves, positive or negative. So I would say that the identification and an addiction with the senses are correlated. In a way, it's an academic question, because really doesn't matter that how identification occurs. What is more relevant is to understand that identification, when you identify yourself as a man, as a woman, as a son, a daughter, a mother, father, with all the images that come with that you're experiencing a limitation. No matter how great this identity is, it's still limited. And so you will experience a sense of angst and a sense of lack. To understand that this process and to have a sense of our inner freedom, that there is an innate freedom within us where the body-mind can rejoice and relax in this inner freedom, does not need to constantly be seeking, be contracted, be avoiding. To have a sense of that inner peace and to relax in that inner peace matters more than understanding the causality of addiction, the causality of identification. Okay, Rhonda, that's as much as I have to say now about your question, but if there is more to it, please feel free to follow up with a follow-up question. There is an email I received from Esther. So it says, "Hi, Magdi. In spite of many years on being on the path of awakening to reality and embracing it to the best of my ability, there remains a pattern of overwhelming fear that rises up from time to time. When it does, it is terrifying. Please address this." Yeah. So Esther, this fear is the trickery of the mind. What happens is when you become interested in your true nature, forget about God. You need to pay attention to me. You need to cater to me. Because in the contemplation of the self, we are basically asking ourselves the following question: what is my true nature? Am I this man or this woman that I take myself to be? Am I this character that I've identified with all my life? Or am I the formless, aware presence? When you start asking these questions, you come to realize that there are two qualities to your experience. There is what you perceive, and there is that perceives. What you perceive may be a male or a female, but that perceives has no gender, is formless, is not a person. And it is scary when when you start contemplating that, it is scary for the me, because the me exists via its own belief in itself. The whole structure of me, my feeling about myself and how I appear in society, how I appear with my family, how I appear at work, it's all a mental structure that maintains itself by believing in itself and by remaining in the dark, meaning it does not flourish when you contemplate the self. When you contemplate the truth, you realize that, oh goodness, I am not this person that I thought myself to be. I am consciousness. And it's very scary for the person. But you have to go through this fear, because this fear is just there as a bodily sensation to block you, to be an obstacle for you in your contemplation. It arises like as if there is some danger to you. It's like, oh my God, if I contemplate what I truly am, then I might end up being nothing. And being nothing is a scary thought. So it's a thought that arises that, oh my God, if you lose your identity, you will become nobody and nothing. You'll just, how will you live? How will you be able to survive without identity? This is why you have friends and you have teachers along the way that arise, that encourage you, that tell you, don't worry. These fears are imaginary, that the world, body, mind continues perfectly without you, without you being a person. It continues because there is a power, one power that creates all that is created, that we refer to as God or infinite consciousness or universal beingness, that powers the sun to shine, that powers the galaxies to remain in a certain gravitational order, that powers the weather to be in a certain way, that powers the body, the human body and other bodies to function in a certain way. So these fears are imaginary obstacles that once you go through them, you find that there is nothing there. There is no danger. But if you don't go through the fear, if you don't face the fear, that fear remains at a distance and seems to be real. You need to approach this fear to realize that there is nothing there. There is one power which is within you, which is the power of God, which is the grace of universal consciousness. It is what you are. You are this light, you are this immensity, you are this vastness, you are this grace. Nothing can be augmented or removed to what you truly are. Nothing can diminish your wholeness. So don't fear the fear. If the fear arises, recognize it as being the separate self that is fearing its disappearance. But the separate self, when you look at it, when you look for it, you don't find it. You only find thoughts and sensations. You don't actually find somebody who is in danger. When you look at what is your reality, you find consciousness, you find awareness. You find this inner peace that is your true home. But to come to this discovery, sometimes we have to face some of those demons, some of those emotions that arise. Because they will arise to scare us. So when we remain still, we find that it is a mirage, that there is really no lion coming at us. It is a mirage. It goes right through us. Because we are not the body. If something comes at the body, then the body will do what it can to survive. There is intelligence in the body. There is intelligence. When you feel cold, there is intelligence in the body to seek warmth, to bundle up, to get a jacket. When you feel hungry, there is intelligence in the body to look for food and feed the body. That's all. This is built in. And the body, at some time or the other, it's constantly changing. And at some time or the other, that body is taking a different form, will dissolve into consciousness. But we don't need to wait for the body to actually die so we can realize the self. The body can dissolve in consciousness in this moment of awakening. The reality of the body is consciousness. There isn't a body reality, a physical reality, and the consciousness reality. There aren't two realities. There's just one reality, which is the reality of consciousness, the formless self, that is always there throughout the day, throughout the night. You will always find consciousnness, awareness, beingness, that inner peace. You have to turn your attention to it. It's an inner sense that reveals it to you as your true nature. Fears relate to the person. When you are a person, you have all sorts of fears about what is going to happen to the person. Am I going to get that job that I'm looking for? Am I going to get that relationship that I'm looking for or not? All the emotions relate to the person, to the identity, to the identification. But consciousness doesn't experience fear. Awareness doesn't experience the emotions. So the question is, what are you truly? Are you the thoughts that you imagine yourself to be? Are you the memories? Are you sensations? Or are you awareness? You need to contemplate that. And to experience fears along our path is normal. We all experience that at some time or the other. But these fears are ill-founded. They have no real foundation. Don't give them any power. Simply give power to God, give power to truth, give power to grace. Invite the light of wisdom and the light of consciousness into your being. Remain welcoming for the wisdom of the self to shine brightly. It will because your love for it calls it. Your love for truth reveals the truth. But whenever you become concerned about your personhood, then you remain engrossed in the personhood. And the personhood is very complex. It is the mind. It's a labyrinth of thoughts and impressions and hopes and sorrows and regrets and strategies. The deeper you go into the personhood, the more complex, and you experience confusion and all the emotions, loneliness, sorrow, regret. All along, the stillness of being is available to you. So you can pause anytime and contemplate the presence of God. Contemplate the reality of consciousness. And not what you imagine yourself to be. So if there are any questions that you have.
Thank you, Magdi. I hear you.
Is this Nilam or who? I'm sorry, who is that?
This is Esther. You just
Hello, Esther. Oh yes, Esther. Okay.
thank you. Thank
Yes.
you so much.
Okay, Esther. Very lovely. Thank you for your question.
There's a question on the YouTube. I'm going to write it and give it to you.
Okay. So there is a question on YouTube that Tara is going to write, and I could answer it here. Okay, thank you, Habiti. Okay, so just reading the question that was posed on YouTube. The question goes, it feels like I am this person that is this body. How can I see if that is true or not? Just writing the question also in the chat box. So the way to look at this question, I feel I am the person, I feel I am the body, is the following. Before you asked your question, from John. Okay, hello, John. Yes, John. So, John, in order for you to ask this question, I feel like I'm the body, is this true or not? You have experienced a feeling and a thought. You've experienced the feeling. It's very simply, I'm perceiving a feeling here, and this feeling says I am the body. And you also may have also perceived the thought that arose, I'm this body, I feel I'm this body, and what is Magdi talking about? How can I know if I am the body or not? So you have perceived a thought and you've perceived a feeling. Ask yourself, John, what is it that perceived this feeling? What is it that perceived this thought? So there is a feeling that arises. Let's say it's a painting. Let's just say the feeling is some sort of painting. And the painting says, I am the body. Now you're perceiving this painting that says, I am the body, the painting being the feeling. But what is it that's perceiving this painting, this feeling? Obviously, there is something that is perceiving this feeling. There is something that is perceiving the thought as well. What perceives this feeling is not inside the feeling. What perceives the thought is not inside the thought. You could say, sort of figuratively speaking, that the feeling or the thought is arising within you, to you. It arises, and an hour later or 10 minutes later or 5 minutes later, it's the feeling is not there anymore. Now you feel hungry, for example. So there is something that arises to you, a feeling or a thought. It has a beginning and an end. It arises as a form. We call it a sensation, or we call it a feeling, or we call it a thought, or we call it a perception. It's still an arising. It arises to what? To you. Doesn't it arise to you? And this you, which we refer to as I perceive a feeling. I perceive a thought. This I that perceives the thought is not defined by the thought. The I that perceives the tree, like if you're looking at an oak tree, is not defined by the oak tree. The I that perceives a feeling, you're perceiving, for example, a bodily sensation, like a toothache, for example. It's not a feeling, it's a sensation. You're not defined by the sensation. You remain that reality, let's use that term, that perceives the sensation, that perceives the feeling, that perceives the thought. The fact that you are perceiving a feeling that says, I am the body, does not mean that you indeed are the body. There are some people who perceive the feeling that they are a ghost, or that they are a bird. You know, maybe again some psychiatric cases, I don't know, or somebody falls on their head, or have an accident, or they have some sort of trauma, I don't know, and their brain functioning is altered, and now they perceive that they are Frankenstein, who knows? But the fact that they perceive this feeling, and they strongly feel that they are a bird, does not mean, in fact, that they are a bird. The point that I'm making, John, is that it is a mistake to define yourself by a feeling or by a thought. You think about it, that what perceives the thought is not defined by the thought. And that is the true I. What I am is not defined by anything that is experienced, because I, consciousness, is not a thing. It's a different realm from what is perceived. The reality of what you are is a different realm from what you perceive. A good metaphor, John, I use it often, is the night dream. In your night dream, you are the dreamer. You dream that, let's say, you are a lion, or that you are a butterfly. But if you define yourself by being a butterfly, you may have that experience, but when you wake up, you realize that it's not true. You have never truly been a butterfly. It's a metaphor, the metaphor of the night dream. In the waking state, it is similar. When you define yourself by your thoughts or by your feelings, you are making the following assumptions. The assumption you are making is that the thought or the feeling knows what you are. Ask yourself, how can a feeling know what I am? After all, I'm experiencing 1,000 feelings during the day. Even if I'm perceiving one feeling throughout the day, let's say I'm experiencing one feeling. I'm a man, 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 I'm a man. Still, the same question applies. How can something that you're experiencing know what you are? What you're experiencing depends on you. You do not depend on what you're experiencing. The proof of that is that in your deep sleep, you don't experience any thoughts, any feelings, any body, any hunger. You don't experience the bed. You don't experience your mother. You don't experience your car. You don't. And yet you are. Between two thoughts, there is a gap. Because if there was no gap between two thoughts, there would be one thought. Right? So you experience thought A, you experience it. And then you experience zero thought, no thought. And then you experience thought B. And then no thought. And then you experience thought C. Between thought A and thought B, you are. You don't disappear. The thought disappears. But you, the formless self, don't disappear. So your question, John, is a very good question. It feels like I am this person, this is that I am this body. How can I see if that is true or not? Just ask yourself the questions that we just shared together. Now, because for so long we have been identified with our feelings of being the body and with our thoughts, I am this man or I'm this woman, etc. It may take a while for you to realize that even though you've been believing that your entire life, and even though around you 7 billion human beings believe the same thing, that there is a crucial virus, a crucial mistake that we are making, that the sages point out. They point out this crucial mistake. That in identifying yourself with a feeling, with a sensation, with an image, with the body, you have reduced consciousness awareness to a mortal form. This contemplation, you need to keep visiting it. You need to keep doing satsang, your own satsang here, contemplation of the scriptures and your own meditations, to looking at that, what is being shared with you right now. And the more you contemplate truth, the more truth will reveal itself. But the more you contemplate and you define yourself by your feelings and your emotions, and everybody else is feeling the same way, the more difficult it will be for you to experience your innate freedom and the causeless happiness of the self, the peace and the happiness of the self that has no cause, that is the reality of your being. I hope this is helpful to you in your question, John. Please feel free to follow up whichever way. I'm available every Thursday in here, and also in other ways. I'm available on Facebook and etc. There are ways, but because the contemplation needs a sustained interest. It's a sustained interest that will grow in you, will bloom in you, will evolve in you, and will settle in your heart and become your love and passion, and your life will be transformed via that passion and that love. So thank you for your question, John. Maybe I want to say one more thing about this, is there is a reality to our experience. Even though this may be a dream, it could be that what we're perceiving is a dream. There is a reality that perceives this dream. And this reality is what we refer to as I. The body is constantly transforming in time and space. The 10-year-old body and the 20-year-old body, very different. The 20 and the 40 or the 50 is very different. Or the body from moment to moment is different. It's constantly changing. Now, reality is not something that changes. Because if reality changes, then it makes no sense to call it reality. We know intuitively that there is a reality to our experience. And in our contemplation, we come to the understanding that consciousness, awareness is real. Because everything that you experience via awareness. And whenever you look, you find awareness. You may not find your car, you may not find your partner, you may not find your mother, but you will always find awareness. We know that there is a reality, and that reality is awareness, therefore. But the body is not it. The body is just an experience that we're experiencing that's constantly changing, like your night dreams. It may seem to be a really scary thought to consider, because we've been identifying with the body all our life. But it's not that scary, because consciousness is there. The presence is there. Awareness is there. God is there. What better companion would we pray for? Okay. So if there is any other question. Yes, you're welcome, Judith. Oh, there is a question from Zoe. Let me see if I could, if I can retrieve it. Oh, okay. Okay, Zoe. So Zoe had somehow been offline and back. Okay, Zoe. So, anyways, Zoe, this meeting is being recorded on YouTube. You can, if you missed anything, you can watch it on YouTube. Just Google my name. So is there any question? Oh, okay, Renate, that's very lovely. Renate just wrote just peace here. It's very beautiful. Yes. Yes. Well, okay, Nilam. So very beautiful. Just peace here. It's very beautiful. Peace is very beautiful. And so very lovely to be with you all. And we'll get together then on the next meeting. Namaste to you all.